how to increase. We're going to knit one front and back to increase our stitch count by 1. So I cast on and knitted 20 stitches for about 4 rows, knitted and purled to create a stockinette fabric, just to give us a little bit of fabric to work with. So I'm going to knit a few stitches, and I've moved to circular needles as well, just because they're more comfortable for me to work with. This is what I primarily use. I have the Chiagu needle set with a red lace case, or this is the case that I have inside my needles, or inside my package. I have several needles. I'm currently using the 4s on a project, and I have the 8s that I'm working with now, but this is the small set and this is the large set. They have 2 different packages of cables, the small set and the large set. So these won't fit on those needles, and these won't fit on these needles because the end is that it screws onto is larger than they are on the small needles. So these can get fairly large in the needle size, but they I love this set. I use it for tons of, well, used it every day since I've got it here to the house, but that's my favorite needle set. And I have, again, I've got my Hobby Lobby I Love This cotton yarn and my Chiagu 8-inch circular, or sorry, this is my size 5 millimeter 8, size 8 needles. There you go. And we're going to knit a couple stitches with my yarn here. I've got my, on the right side of the work, I've got my tail end here, my working yarn here. Knit a couple stitches, and then we'll do a knit one front and back, and show you how to do this increase real quick. So I've knit a couple stitches. We're going to increase on this stitch. So I'm going to knit the front one. Then we're going to swing the yarn around to the back loop of this stitch. Pick that up. Insert the needle knitwise. So you're going to go, see how I've twisted the stitch. Go into the stitch knitwise. Hopefully you can see that. Insert there. Wrap the needle around. Pull that stitch through and then take it off, and you've increased by 1 stitch. So you have the original stitch plus the new stitch that you created. Then you continue knitting, and when you get to the other side, you've got an increase in your amount of stitches, and you can hardly tell in the work that this is a stitch that you just created. It looks like it might have a little bit of a purl bump to it because of the way we twisted the yarn to get to the back of the stitch. But let me show you how to do that again. So you knit through the front loop of the first of that stitch. You're going to twist to the back side of that, insert into this back side of that same stitch we just worked knitwise, and then you're going to pull it down and through and off the needle. It creates a little purl bump look, but you just continue knitting. Okay, and then you can hardly tell that it's an increase, except for there is a tiny little purl bump there. And on the back side, oh, I don't know that I could tell. Oh yeah, you can, right here. You can see they're kind of got a little bit gathered together, but other than that, you can't tell that it's an increase. And you just continue knitting. So let's do it one more time. You insert to the front, to the back, from the front to the back on the left side of the stitch. Pull your first stitch of the knit stitch through. Then you're going to insert to the back of that stitch on that same stitch that you're currently working on. knit that, and then pull it off the needle. And that's your increased stitches. I've increased 3 stitches on this row. And you can, the only way you can tell is by that little purl bump that that's an increase. So now let's finish out this row and we'll show you purl one front and back. Sorry, we need more yarn. This cotton yarn doesn't like to work as well as my wool does on these needles. Oh, and there it split. So if it splits, I just take it off, put it back on the needle, that on the left side needle, making sure that that right bar of the stitch is in the front, and then knit it. Okay, now we're going to go to the purl side of the work. We're going to purl a few stitches. So when you purl, you make sure that the yarn you're working with is in the front. So that's why when I'm working with circulars, I will go through and under. Insert there, purl a few stitches. When you're increasing on a purl row, let me see if I can describe this correctly. You purl 1, and then you have to turn the work. It's harder to increase on a purl row because you need to come into the purl, into the back of the stitch purlwise. So you need to come through that same stitch. So let me show you again. We've just purled this stitch. Let me take that off. This is more challenging. So you're going to go into the stitch purlwise, purl that stitch, but then when you increase, you're going to turn the whole work to get to the back side of this purl of this stitch we're currently working on. Insert the needle purlwise under, purl that, and then go back through and then take it off the needle. Let me show you one more time here. See, knit a couple more stitches. Now we're going to insert purlwise, purl that stitch. We're going to turn the work, insert the needle into this back loop of the same stitch purlwise, purl, wrap the yarn around in a purl direction, and then come back to the back side of the loop and take the needle, or take the stitch off the needle. That's how you increase in the purlwise direction. We'll do that one more time. Alright, so let me knit or purl a couple of stitches, and then we will insert purlwise, knit purl this stitch, leaving the stitch on the needle, turn the entire work, insert into the back loop of that same stitch without it falling off the needle, purlwise, wrap the yarn around, and then take that back stitch back through that loop purlwise and increase the stitch, and then continue purling. That's how you increase on a purl side. And I've created some purls, and you can't really tell because the purl bumps, they're just a little bit tighter together. You can see one here, and you can see one there. But it's harder to see the increases on the purl side of the work than it is on the knit. But that's how you do it.